Lesson 4, Settings. Now, I know a lot of people aren't going to be very excited about settings, but there are a lot of interesting things that you can do in the settings, so let's check it out. By now, you've probably gotten the hang of how you navigate around the WordPress admin, so if you go over to the menu bar and click Settings, you're taken to your WordPress settings. As you can see, there are a number of settings available, and we're going to go through each section individually, starting with general settings. The first thing you can set in general settings is your site title. This is something that you set during install, but if you decide you want to change it, you can change it right here. Keep in mind that the site title appears at the top of the browser and also, for most themes, at the top of your blog. The tagline is a quick kind of pithy thing about what your blog is, so I'm going to put iPads all the time, but you can come up with something better. The WordPress address is where you've installed WordPress. If you'll remember back to lesson 1, we decided to install WordPress in the root directory of our website, meaning that there is no /WordPress folder in which WordPress was installed. But if you decide you want to install WordPress in a subdirectory, this is the URL you would change, and in that example we would just do /WordPress here, and WordPress would know where it was installed. Since we don't have that installed here, we're just going to keep it at its default. You'll notice here that our WordPress address and our site address are the same, and that's because we've installed WordPress at the root of our website. If you install it somewhere else, then the site address is the URL of your blog, not of your WordPress installation. Email address is the email address that WordPress will send emails to of an administrative nature, so you can create a generic account for this or use your personal email as I am. Membership allows people to register for your blog without your intervention. So you can decide to have people register on your blog, create their own accounts, and you can even set the new user default to something other than subscriber. I would caution you, if you decide to allow registration on your website, to leave the default as subscriber. You might wonder, why would I want anyone to register for my blog? All will become clear in the discussion settings, so we'll hold that off until then. Time zone is your time zone. WordPress doesn't know what your time zone is by default, so you just have to figure out where your time zone is and set it here so that all the times associated with your posts are correct. As you can see, there are a large number of time zones for you to choose from. Date format impacts how the date is shown on your blog, so if you don't want it to appear as October 25th, 2010, but you'd rather it be 2010-10-25, you can do that, or you can even customize it to your heart's content. I like October 25th, so I'm just going to keep that there. Time format, same deal, only with time. Week starts on impacts how the calendar appears on your blog, so if you rather have it start on Sunday, which is kind of traditional, just pick Sunday. If you've made any changes, be sure to click Save Changes so that all your hard work is saved. Moving on to the next section of settings, writing section. And as you can tell, the writing settings impact the writing on your blog. So this will impact how the post page looks and the pages page, which we will cover in a later lesson. If you like a larger or smaller post box, you can change this setting here from something higher than 10 to something lower than 10. For formatting, you can have WordPress automatically change emoticons to little graphics if you like. Emoticons are the little smiley or winky faces. By default, that's checked. And you can also have WordPress automatically correct invalidly nested XHTML automatically. And if that doesn't mean anything to you, just leave it as the default. Speaking of defaults, the default post category is uncategorized at the moment because that's the only category we have. I'll be talking more about categories. I'll be talking more about categories for both posts and links in a later lesson. The next section is called Press This, which isn't actually even a setting, but rather it is a bookmarklet that you can install on your browser and be able to blog from any website very easily. We're going to talk about that when we're talking about posting, so I'm going to hold off on that. Let's scroll down. Post via email is an interesting setting because that allows you to email a blog post to your website and have it appear automatically. It does not support attachments, so if you email a picture to your blog, it will not be displayed. Now keep in mind that post via email only works with a POP3 account, so if you have an IMAP account, it will not work. It also needs to know the login name and password of that account, because what WordPress does is it actually logs into the account to check for email, which is why they suggest that you use a random string to create a special secret email address that only you know that you can post to, because when something's emailed to that email address, it is automatically posted. So if you decide you want to post via email, make sure you know your mail server address and you create a special email account that only you know of. And you can also decide what category your email post should be. You could create a mobile blogging category, and every post that you email to your blog will be automatically posted in that category. Remote publishing is turned off by default. If you are interested in using a third-party blogging application for Windows or Mac or whatever your operating system might be, you need to enable either the Atom Publishing Protocol or XML RPC. And finally, update services. Update services, as you can see, lists by default pingomatic.com. Now you might wonder, what is an update service? An update service is a service that your blog can send a little message to whenever you post new content that says, hey, I've recently updated my blog. And that centralized service keeps track of a number of blogs, and people can go there and either check out new posts themselves or programmatically so that they know when new content has been created. Pingomatic is actually a service run by the people who create WordPress, so it's there by default. If you want to add a different update service, just hit enter after Pingomatic to start a new line and write the URL of the update service. Once again, if you've changed anything, be sure to hit Save Changes. The reading settings are pretty straightforward. The front page displays is a very powerful setting. WordPress grew up as a blogging system. First and foremost, that is what its job is. But now you can kind of use it as a CMS or content management system thanks to a couple of new features, one of which is front page displays. By default, the front page displays your latest posts. But you can also create something called a page, and you can have WordPress display that page instead of your posts. So one, you can imagine if you create a welcome page, you could have WordPress running your website and display that welcome page by hitting a static page and choosing that welcome page from this drop-down menu, which at the moment only lists about because I only have one page. And then when people go to iPadBungalow.com, they'll see the About page. And then you can create a special page that will show your posts so that you can have the About page as your front page, but also list all of your posts. So now blog pages show at most 10 posts, so that means the front page will show 10 posts. The archive pages will show 10 posts per page. You can increase that or decrease that. If you increase it, just be aware that the more content you load, the slower your blog will load. The syndication feed is what people subscribe to your blog using news readers so that they will see the last 10 items. You can increase that or decrease that. The next setting for each article in a feed show either full text or a summary. By default, it lists full text, so that means that the people who are subscribing to your feed in a newsreader will see the entire post. If you choose summary, they will only see an excerpt. Now, if you want my advice, which I assume you do because you're watching this video, I would stick with full feed because the people who subscribe to your blog are probably highly engaged and deserve to read the whole thing. But there is some thinking on the web that if you want to make advertising money from your website, you need to do summaries to force people to visit your website. So that I leave that up to you, but I suggest full text. The final setting is encoding for pages and feeds, which you can just leave as the default. The discussion settings are all about comments and who can leave comments and what happens when a person leaves a comment. Let's check out the default article settings. As you can see, they're all checked. As it is now, this blog will attempt to notify any blogs linked to from this article. So if you create a post that links to several blogs, it will send what's known as a trackback to each of those blogs, alerting them to the fact that you've linked to their content. The second setting is allow link notifications from other blogs. So this is when someone links to your blog, you will get an automatic notification. And the third setting is allow people to post comments on new articles. If you decide you don't want comments on your blog, uncheck allow people to post comments on new articles, and no one will be able to post comments. Keep in mind that default article settings can be overridden on a post-by-post basis. So if you have a post that you decide you want comments on, but you've disabled comments for your entire site, you can enable comments just for that post, and we'll cover that in the post lesson. Let's move on to the other comment settings. You'll see there the first setting is comment author must fill out name and email. I suggest you keep this checked as is the default option, because when people have to provide their name and email address on a comment, they tend to behave a little better. The second setting here, users must be registered and logged in to comment, will limit the number of people that can comment on your blog, but it will also help you combat comment spam, which is the scourge of the universe. If you'll remember, in the general settings, there was a setting to allow people to register for your blog. If you enable that and check users must be registered and logged in to comment, only people who have registered for your blog will be able to leave comments on your posts. Third setting here is also another setting that attempts to stop comment spam, automatically close comments on articles older than 14 days. So if you have an article that is 15 days old, comments will automatically be closed on that post and no one will be able to leave a comment. You can change that number, you can make it higher, you can make it lower. Enable threaded or nested comments 5 levels deep means that people will be able to respond to each other in comments, and those responses will be indented. So if you leave a comment and I respond to your comment, my comment will be indented under your comment, up to 5 layers. And you can change that to up to 10 layers if you like. Now if you want to paginate your comments, you check the next box, break comments into pages with 50 top level comments per page, and the last page displayed by default. So by default, if you enable this, each page of comments will display 50 comments, and the most recent comments will be displayed first. If you change that 50 to another number, obviously it will display that many comments. And if you choose first page, then the earliest comments will be displayed first. So it'll be chronological order as opposed to reverse chronological order. Finally, you can choose how your comments should be displayed chronologically. Either older comments on the top of each page or newer comments on the top of each page. The next section deals with when a WordPress emails you about something, and it's called appropriately email me whenever. By default, you get an email whenever someone posts a comment and whenever a comment is held for moderation. Comment moderation means that a comment is being held and needs to be approved by an administrator before it will show up on your blog. You can check or uncheck either of these or a combination of the two. Before a comment appears is how you tell WordPress what to do before it approves a comment. So you can see the first option is an administrator must always approve the comment. So that means that no matter what comment is left, an administrator must log in and approve each one individually, which can turn into a lot of work if you're running a popular blog. The second option, comment author must have a previously approved comment, helps because that means that anyone whose comment you have approved before will automatically get their comment approved so that there is no interaction from an administrator needed. And that makes sense because they've already made a good faith display that they are adding to the conversation as opposed to just posting crap. Speaking of comment moderation, the next section is all about moderation. So you can see under comment moderation, you can hold a comment in the queue if it contains 2 or more links. This is because comment spam generally consists of a number of links with a bunch of gibberish. WordPress takes a look at every comment before it's posted and says, hey, this comment has 4 links to someplace. I'm going to hold this in moderation and let a person figure out if it is real or not. The next section is a moderation filter list, if you will. You can enter words that will automatically put the comment in moderation. Now, any comment that has the word spam in it, no matter if it is from a previously approved commenter or not, will be held in moderation until myself or another administrator approves it. You can also list email addresses, URLs, or IP addresses here in case you have a certain person who's bothersome. Scrolling down to comment blacklist, it's very much the same as the comment moderation list, except that these comments are automatically rejected. So if they have a word or the IP address or the email address or the URL that is listed in the blacklist, that comment is marked as spam and it will never show up on your website. The final section of the discussion settings are avatars. Avatars are digital representations of people, and they show up when people leave a comment on your blog or when an author writes a post. And they're just a little picture that is next to the person's name that represents them. By default, WordPress does display avatars. If you decide you don't like avatars, you can click Don't Show Avatars. I happen to like avatars, so I put Show Avatars. Now, I know what you're thinking. I have no control over these avatars. So what if someone decides to have an inappropriate picture linked with their avatar? That's where maximum rating comes in. You can decide if you want only avatars that are rated G, only avatars that are rated PG and G, avatars that are rated R, PG, or G, and avatars that are rated X and below. Keep in mind that the rating system is something that a person applies to their own avatar. So as we know, people have wildly different opinions as to what is appropriate and what is inappropriate. Finally, not everyone has an avatar, So for those folks that don't have an avatar, you can choose a default avatar. You can have Mystery Man, you can choose to be blank, you can show the Gravatar logo, Gravatar being another associated company with WordPress, or you can pick from one of the 3 generated avatars, which will generate unique avatars for a person who doesn't have an avatar. Once again, once you've finished setting all these things, click Save Changes, so all of your work is saved. Let's continue our tour of settings by checking out the media settings. Media settings, of course, refer to any media, either pictures or video, that you upload or embed in your posts. Whenever you upload an image, WordPress helpfully creates a number of thumbnail images, and here you can set the size of those thumbnails. The first option is thumbnail, which is the smallest one. By default, it's 150 by 150 and makes it a square. And you'll see right underneath the dimensions is an option to crop thumbnail to exact dimensions, which means it will crop your picture to be a square. But if you decide that you don't want that to happen, it will create an image that has the height of 150 but not the width, so to make it proportional. Medium size and large size are both sizes of other thumbnails, and you can choose what you want the maximum width and maximum height of those to be by entering a number here. Underneath image sizes, we see the embeds section. The embed you're probably most familiar with is YouTube. So if you do automatic embeds, all you have to do is paste a YouTube link or a Vimeo link or one of the other services that WordPress can auto embed, and it will automatically get the embed code from YouTube, so you don't have to find it yourself. You can also set the maximum embed size here. Now this, of course, only impacts auto embed. Finally, the uploading files section deals with how you store and upload files to your WordPress blog. By default, everything is stored in the wp-content/uploads directory, and this is the directory that is used when the store uploads in this folder field is left blank, as it is here. If you decide you want to store your images in a folder called images, just type in images, and now WordPress will use that folder. Full URL path to files. Full URL paths to file is left blank by default, and I suggest that you just leave it blank. And finally, organize my uploads into month and year based folders is also checked by default, and this will, as it says, organize your uploads. If you upload something in the month of October in 2010, let's say, WordPress will automatically create a folder called 2010. Within that folder, it will create another folder called 10, and then within that 10 folder will be placed your image. This just helps organize your images for you. You can uncheck it if you don't like it. Once again, click Save Changes to save your changes. Next is privacy, and there's only one setting here, site visibility. Yes or no, basically. Site visibility determines if your blog shows up in search engine results or not. The first option is I would like to make my site visible to everyone, including search engines like Google, Bing, Technorati, and archivers. If you would like to block search engines but allow normal visitors, check the second box, and now search engines will not index your page, but people will be able to go to your blog directly. Our final setting are permalinks. Permalinks are kind of the currency of the web. They are, as the name implies, a permanent link to content. That means that this link should never change. Every one of your posts and pages has a permalink associated with it. Here you can decide what that permalink's structure looks like. As you can see, there are common settings. By default, WordPress uses the first one listed here, which is your blog's address /p=123, for example. Now, what does that mean? The question mark is a PHP convention, PHP being the language that WordPress was written in, and the question mark lets PHP know, I'm going to give you a variable. A variable is a coding term. For example, in this permalink, we have p=123. The p is the variable, and it stands for post ID, and 123 is the number of that post. So every one of your posts has a number, which is associated with it. Now, most people are not going to remember p=123 as a URL. And more importantly, search engines don't find much use of that either, because one of their big things that search engines do is look at the permalink structure to figure out what this page is all about. So if you want to rank high in search engine results, be sure to change your permalinks to one of the other structures. I suggest day and name, but you can also do a custom structure. You'll notice when I select month and name, the final option called custom structure changes. So let's select day and name and see what happens again. and you'll see it changed again. If you decide you want a custom structure for your permalink and you want to create your own, you can use a number of tags as you see here. Year, month, num, day, post name are all tags. You can use a combination of those tags to create your own structure. I like day and name, so we're going to select that one. And in the final section, the optional section, you can create a category base and a tag base for those permalinks. Every one of your categories, every one of your tags has a permalink structure associated with it. So you could create a category base of topics, and if you had a category named books, if people went to ipadbungalow.com/topics/books, they would see all of the posts in that category. Click save to save your changes, and that's a whirlwind tour of the WordPress settings.